alaikum, everybody. Welcome back to Deen Talk. I'm Arifi Waqid, sitting in for Joshua Salam. Before the break, we were talking about some of the challenges that divorced Muslim women find in trying to find a partner. Now, there are also a lot of challenges faced by non-divorced women, women who've never been married before and who are struggling to get married. When we did a little bit of an online survey with our followers on Facebook and Twitter, one of the comments we got was that they believe this is a direct result of the expectations placed on girls versus boys during upbringing. We see so many attractive, educated, physical, and spiritually attractive Muslimas from the same household. We'll also see incredibly average boys and men. Do you believe that there's an issue in the way that women versus men are being raised in our culture?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think in one of your segments before, you talked about how people are being, women are being more educated versus the men. And also, one of the greatest problems that I've seen, whether it be women who go through divorce or women who are trying to get married, is that we culturally still raise our daughters to become women, but we have unfortunately stopped raising our boys to become men. Mm-hmm. And so for them to be able to take on that responsibility of having a wife is one of the greatest challenges we see. And even when it comes into looking for someone, a guy is still looking for love and for like all these, not that I'm against love. Love is good too, I mean, love helps, Yeah. But I think that there's a very idealistic idea of what it's supposed to look like, or what happiness is supposed to look like, what the perfect, the fairy tale. I've found, even in my work with youth, is that they're looking for the fairy tale, and even the ones who are married, the men are looking for the fairy tale, and when they don't find the fairy tale at 35, they're like, peace. And meanwhile, a sister's being left with kids, and she will face the challenge of remarrying. Because once you have children, that's definitely still a major stigma in our community.
It is, definitely.
I definitely agree with the sister. You have to raise your boys just like you raise your girls, because you're grooming them to be wives or how to be a certain way. And as a mother of two boys, I tell my boys all the time, things are not free in life. If you want this and you have to go for it, then you go for it. But you also have to be responsible for what you go for. Everything you do has a consequence, either negative or bad. And if you're not educated, as us being women, our job is to make sure that these men that we're marrying is going to be a suitable man that can raise our children, regardless if it's a child that's coming into the marriage, or if it's a stepchild, or if it's their biological child. At the end of the day, how they groom that child is going to be a lasting impression of what kind of man they're going to be and what kind of wife or woman they're going to look for. And like I tell my children all the time, I do everything I have to do, but at the end of the day, you have to understand your father does things too. It's not all me. I say we work as a team, and that's what a lot of how marriages sometimes don't stay together, is because it's not a team effort. And like the sister said, he used it as a crutch against her to get a second wife, and that's not what it's supposed to be used for. To get the second wife is not to be used as a threat or some type. And I think another reason is a lot of women have problems finding husbands is because some of the men are, intimidated by them.
Yes.
They can't control, or they can't be dominant. And to them, that's all they know, because that's the upbringing. Like in some cultures, they have a certain way of, this is how it's supposed to be. You're my wife, you have children, you stay home, I'm the breadwinner. But not every woman wants that. Some people want to be in the workforce. Some people want to be a mother and a full-time employer. Like myself, I'm a full-time student, I'm a wife, and I'm a mother. But just because I have kids doesn't disable me to go into the work field, because God forbid something ever happens to your spouse. How are you supposed to survive? And I think a lot of women and men don't understand that. The marriage is a whole, and you got to work at it. But always think, this day is not promised. Tomorrow is not promised to none of us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So I think women and men should also educate themselves on, just because the sister has a doctorate or has a master's in teaching, it doesn't mean she's better than you. It just means that once, if you guys help each other as a group, instead of always worrying about, oh, she's better than me and he's better than me and he's making more money and I'm home. No, and that's not what marriage is supposed to be like.
This was actually a problem I faced when I was trying to find a husband, because my Quran studies teacher's wife decided that she needed to find me a man, and they were all, so she set me up on what I like to call 51st horrible Islamic dates.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. They were. And she would sit at a coffee table, like next to my coffee table, and put some guy in front of me. And the guy would always be like, okay, so we're going to have kids and live at home. I'd be like, I'm very ill. I probably can't have kids. Also, I'm getting a doctorate. And they'd be like, okay, but you're going to stay at home and work and not work, right? It's like, no, I'm getting a doctorate. That's working basically by itself. And why would I get it to put it on the shelf? And then they'd basically, they'd peace out. And
that's really disheartening, because that's something that should be valued. Unfortunately, right, in our communities, what is considered valuable for a woman is very narrowly defined. So I think we need to broaden that perspective. Yes, it's valuable for a woman to have good mothering skills, or if she knows how to cook. I'm not saying to disregard those things. Those are good skills. But also, maybe can we look at these other skills that women have, right? Some of them are activists, some of them are working in the community, some of them have jobs. I just think we need to broaden our scope of what's considered valuable.
I think it's a very good time that women are being empowered. Like Khadija radiallahu anha, when we go back to the history, that she was an example for us. I mean, she was married and divorced, and then remarried again. She was a business owner. And she requested, the hand of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so, just looking at that is a lesson that we have to learn from, and not to disencourage women from not being educated, or that. That's a wonderful era that we're living in for the first time. That women are becoming more empowered, they're becoming educated, they're becoming advocates, and all that. But I think at the same token that the men are being intimidated by her. Assertiveness. At the same time, also, I feel that an educated woman also wants someone up to par with her level of intellect.
Yes.
Because that also balances out that equation. That I think I see a lot of women who, in my group, that are educated, highly educated, PhDs and medical doctors, who are having difficulty finding a partner because she's like, minimum college level,
So are we limiting ourselves? Are we becoming too picky?
I think we are becoming picky as well, and I think we have to open up and recognize that really, recognizing our values, being respectful, like do I have respect for this person? And if education is to that extent a value of yours, then yes, maybe you shouldn't marry someone who is less educated than you. But it's definitely an obstacle that we're putting before ourselves when there is such a shortage of men in the community. Anyway,
I agree with that. I think also a lot of women look at finances. They look like this. Men have a good job on top of the education. Can he bring home $400K? But that shouldn't be the reason of the marriage. And I think a lot of women limit themselves. I'm not saying from personal experience, but that I've heard, is that they limit themselves because they have a checklist. It's either in high education, they have to have on the same level. They have to have a good job. They can't be working at McDonald's or Domino's. But my thing is, then you're not looking at the values of the man you're looking for. Because I can have, for instance, if I wanted to go and get married later on, I'm not going to look at their education. Yes, education's important. The money's important, yes. But at the same time, I can have a doctor who's making $20,000, starting on the low side, but then gets a promotion and gets $100K. But then, what comes with that? You have the arrogance. You have them thinking they're higher than you.
Not always.
But not all the time.
Not
But
always.
sometimes, sometimes you will have. But at the same time, it shouldn't be because of education and what they can bring to the table. Why can't you guys work as a whole and bring both to the table? Just because he works at Domino's.
I think we have to define then just the purpose of marriage.
Yeah,
when you
that's
go
not
to
the
marriage,
purpose.
you have to ask yourself, sister, what are you looking for? Are you looking for status? Is if I okay, like if I'm going to I've had this type of a lifestyle, so now this brother, he's a very good brother and everything, he has everything Islamically that I require, but then he is a laborer or some sort. Well, does that fit into my social circle? So intellectually, socially, emotionally, and intimacy are 4 levels that we need to connect with in order to really say, okay, well, this person can check. But a lot of women have to define that for themselves, I think. We cannot, every individual is very specific and very picky to their own, in their own level. And I think women, once they get used to a certain level of lifestyle, I mean, she'll downgrade a little bit, but not too much.
Not too much.
Right, and I think being reasonable is the key factor of what I'm hearing amongst all of this. It's not to say, oh, it's all the men's fault. Obviously, we can't say that. Wouldn't be fair. So I think it's a matter of both parties being reasonable.
Right.
So if a woman, like you said, she is used to having a lavish lifestyle, it wouldn't be fair to expect her to just drop down significantly, like you said, but she might have to a little bit if she feels the other qualities that the man's bringing to the table meet her
expectations are a little higher.
Right.
I think that everybody has to negotiate. I mean, it can't just take.
That's why it's a marriage
you have
contract,
to give,
right? Because it is in a way showing that this is a transaction. You have to look at what you're bringing, what he's bringing.
Exactly. You're going to negotiate. So it's not 100% on her. It's not 100% on him, but it's going to be met in the middle. And I think that makes a big difference.
We'll keep talking about this after the break. See you guys very soon. Assalamu alaikum.